Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, Moses, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Exodus 14 and 12. Now this was directly before Moses parted the sea, and the Israelites passed through, and then the sea closed up over the pursuing Egyptians. Now you would think a miracle like this would convince people not to doubt God, not to put their trust in their eyes or the things of this world. But what do we know? Even thousands of years later, Julius Caesar said, It is easier to find men who will volunteer to die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. It's an amazing parallel to see that mankind did not change whether they were Roman or whether they were Israelite. That man is man. It was only a couple of chapters later in the Bible where they were saying the same thing. The Israelites said to them, If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. This is Exodus 16 and 3. So it is just the nature of man to be in this state and going into the end times. We're literally living in the end times. God said it would be as in the days of Noah. Well, that was far before even this. So it's an interesting thing to see way back in the time of Noah, the time of Moses, the time of Julius Caesar, and even now we see the same thing. I'm going to show you something from the news that I predicted would happen about a year or two ago, and almost lost a huge portion of my audience because I predicted it because of the salaciousness of what I predicted. But real quick, just want to say thank you, pardon me, for all of the support. You guys are making a huge difference in my life. I want to be diligent every day, and as the Bible commands us, live a life of gratitude and be thankful no matter what comes. No matter what trial may present itself, I always want to be thankful for what I have. I want to look around and say, you know what? It could be a lot worse. Every day above ground and breathing is a good day. I'm blessed by every one of you, even those of you who don't agree. You know, we're not always meant to agree all the time. We can sit down and talk about things, and we can, if we don't agree, we can find the places in life that we do and move forward as a group. And I'm very thankful for that. If you'd like to join us at Patreon, it's only $1, not per video, not per week, per month. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. You sign up for an entire year, it comes out to 3 red pennies a day. That's it. And there's over 300 videos over there. I'm going to be putting up a new one in the next couple of days because, once again, partnering with Vimeo, over there we can show things we can't show here. And we're going to do it in a way that's not salacious, overly salacious, but we're going to show the imagery that needs to be shown to drive the point home. And it goes right along with today's video. Where riches hold the dominion of the heart, God has lost his authority. John Calvin. Now we could do a whole nother series of videos on Calvinism. But it always perplexed me, of all of the failings and all of the faults of man, why were the end times described in the Bible this way? The harlot, Babylon the Great. Who is the whore of Babylon in Revelation 17 and 18? Upon her forehead was written, name Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Of all of the things that mankind does wrong, or mankind can be accused of being sinful, this is a very peculiar one to pick out. Because I can think of a bunch of things, especially in the modern world, that people would say were far more immoral. Now, people got almost sick of me talking about colony and talking about how when people are put in stressful situations, decisions are made that bother people, that it's not moral, but what are we going to do to save the house? What are we going to do to save our lives as we know it? The money is just not adding up right now, and there's one option to bring in a whole bunch of money, but boy, is it an ugly option. Well, guess what? Here we are now in September of 2023. I started talking about this a year and a half ago, and it's top of the fold, front page, Fox News. Biden's senior ethics officials link to Democrat who live streamed sex acts with her husband for money. The woman who did this is a nurse practitioner. They make a pretty good chunk of change. Her husband is an attorney. They do pretty well. And they weren't doing it for fun. They were doing it because they needed the money. This is her right here. Now you think, oh, who's this old pervert old man that gave her the money? See this person on the left? This is the person that donated the $1,000 to her. Now, there's no direct connection between the political donation and the activities that occurred on the website. But it goes to the idea that you have an idea in your mind of what's really going on sometimes with people, and you have no real clue. When you look at these people, you look at these folks, you think very normal, very average, people, probably doing better than most. You have a nurse practitioner, and you have an attorney, and they've got a home in Virginia, probably doing better than most. They got a dog, and it's a tough moral hill to climb, in the sense that she was with her husband was with her. They were doing it, whatever it was they were doing, on camera, in the privacy of their own home, behind locked doors, with nobody lying to anybody, nobody deceiving anybody. See, we had this story. Who remembers this? Who remembers it was over a year ago? This people came down on this girl here in Florida who was on this another site, doing the same thing. Just single mom trying to raise her kids from home. When lockdown occurred, she had to make a decision about how she was going to make her money and how she could do it and watch her kid and provide her kid a life. And the bizarre part about this is you go all the way back 2016, 17, 18, when the series Colony was out, about the space aliens coming down and, putting down the walls. We talked about this forever and ever and ever. There's a character in there. Amanda Rigetti played the character, and she had a son in the series. Needed insulin. Insulin was expensive. It was rare. Couldn't find it. Did what she had to do to take care of her kid. It was a very interesting thing to see. And I made this meme as part of that. I used to care what people thought about me until one day I tried to pay my bills with their opinions. And now here we are. Because in the land, and you're like, well, what does this have to do? Okay, great story, McKee. What does this have to do with Exodus? What does that have to do with the Bible? What does this have to do with Caesar? In a land that serves mammon like we do, the worst possible thing you can be is poor. The worst possible thing you can be is homeless. There's nothing worse, and people will do anything but in the land that serves mammon. And make no mistake, this is the land that we serve. Mammon. You cannot serve God and mammon. Mammon literally is, if there was an ism attached to it, what is capital? If you say my business is flush with capital, what does that mean you are flush with? What does that mean you have a lot of? My capital outflows are way too much this quarter. I've got to cut out capital outflows. What is it? Money. Mammon. Mammon is literally the word for money. And that's where we live. Now, speaking of mammon, oh, here he is. There's another interesting story where when you put them up next to each other, you would think one would be, I guess, relatively speaking, less immoral than the other, but not really so much if you actually read the Bible. Now, what's the story? This is, of course, Lauren Boebert, the gun girl from Colorado. U.S. Congresswoman apologizes for groping video. You see, first, she got real smart aleck because she got tossed out of a theater for vaping and singing and laughing. And she's like, yep, they threw me out. They're just a bunch of Democrat liberal crybabies who threw me out because I was singing too loud and having too good of a time. They don't want me to do that. Well, you see, she didn't realize at that time they had other video of her. And now she's come out and changed her story and said Lauren Boebert said she's humbled by video appearing to show her behaving inappropriately at a show attended by kids. Well, what did she do that was so bad? Well, I'm not going to show. It's here on YouTube. I'll give you the link to the Telegraph. Right here, center of the screen. This row right here, you got row 1, row 2, third row right in the middle, kind of where I'm circling right here. This guy, this is her with her hand someplace that she probably thought was safe in a completely dark theater. And to be fair, this is night vision technology. So it wasn't this bright where it was. And he's got his hands where you would probably expect a 15-year-old boy. Now this, to be clear, is not a 15-year-old boy. Full-grown man and full-grown woman acting like as if they are in 9th grade in a theater. And during this entire time, this isn't all that goes on. She begins videoing the show, which you're not supposed to do. Not that big of a deal. Singing loudly, jumping around, vaping. I mean, it just basically, when you look at the behavior in this video of everyone else around them, just making a spectacle of themselves. Now, okay, Monkey, so she's not perfect. What's the problem? They bury the lead. You're like, who is this guy? See, she's going through a divorce. That's not her husband. She's going through a divorce. That's not her husband. But that's not the good part. Okay? Boebert, who was reelected to the U.S. Congress in 2022, following an extremely tight race against Democratic businessman Adam Frisch, is generally considered to be one of the more controversial lawmakers in Washington. She has drawn scorn from the left-leaning political colleagues, left-leaning political colleagues for various comments and policy positions, including against the LGBTQ community. Not a big shock for a Republican, right? But according to a report by Advocate, Boebert's male guest at the theater was Quinn Gallagher, a Democratic owner of a bar that often hosts LGBTQ events and drag shows. So now I ask you, who is the more immodest? Because that's always the giant hammer and club that gets swung at me. Women should be modest. Funny how there's no command for men to be the same way. So when you look at what was going on here, and to be fair, the dress that she wore to this was a wardrobe from the waist up, was a wardrobe malfunction waiting to happen. I'm just going to leave it there. You can go look at it for yourself. It's pretty apparent. But then you go back here. What she did with her husband in the privacy of her own home. And yeah, money was involved. But she didn't cheat on her husband didn't cheat on her. They were there together. And now Republicans are trying to shame her for having done this. Versus in public, everybody kept their clothes on. There were no actual acts going on. But who was the more immodest? You see, this is a really tough one for a lot of people, because what was going on here was just pure self-indulgence. And I don't begrudge the woman going out and watching Beetlejuice and having a good time and doing whatever, but for a woman in her 30s and a guy, and I don't know how old he is, to be honest, but seems to be full-grown adult man, at least, I'm going to say at least 30, looks perhaps older, to be carrying on like this in a theater, even if it's fully, dark, like, come on. I mean, is this your first rodeo? You see, it ain't like it used to be. I went through this where somebody did this to me. Somebody saw something that they thought they understood and they didn't understand it, and it caused me a great deal of grief, and I've told this story more than a few times. But it's interesting that you wouldn't think somebody like Lauren Boebert would date a Democrat. Ladies out there, let me ask you. No matter everything else being equal, would you date one? If you're in my audience right now, and you're a Republican, you're a conservative, and you believe in those kind of values, I know we're not all perfect. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. God knows I do. But would you consider dating a man that owned a bar that hosted LGBTQ pride events? Would that be somebody you would consider going to Beetlejuice with, or allowing to explore certain areas of you in the dark? You see, this is the reason I show this picture, is because Megyn Kelly confronted directly Donald Trump in her most recent interview, and she's asked straight up, can a man become a woman? And his answer was not a hard no. He hedged, he paused, he said, well, we'll have to see about that, I'm not sure. If you don't believe me, go look at the Megyn Kelly interview. You see, it's just another piece of evidence, another receipt we're going to keep. Take the guns first, due process second, warp speed, friends with the Clintons for years, had Epstein as at his private club, and now can't for sure say he attacked North Carolina. He attacked North Carolina when they banned all that LGBTQ crap, the bathroom stuff, the bathroom nonsense. He attacked them, if you remember right, before he got elected, and he was one of the first ones to put LGBTQs in his pageants. So, you give me a choice between this and just a normal couple, normal everyday couple, and you say which one's the worst, which one's the more unforgivable or forgivable, however you want to look at it. This is it. It's a tough one, but the greater story is this. Now I understand. Because this is fear of being homeless, fear of not having your life, fear of whatever brings home the bacon. And this is the oldest profession known to man. And now it's just really easy. And when you look back, it's classic. Exodus 14. When things got rough, we would rather be slaves, well-fed slaves. We would rather be well-fed slaves. And then God parts the Red Sea and destroys the Egyptians behind them. And it's only a matter of 2 chapters later. And they're saying we'd still rather be in Egypt, sitting by the flesh pots, eating bread. And then for Caesar, completely different part of history, to have echoed this exact same thing to me is pure confirmation. This is biblical confirmation for me. When Julius Caesar said, in the height of his power, it is easier for me to find men who will volunteer to go die than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience. Because he even knew what he was talking about here was siege warfare. See, siege warfare is boring. You march a bunch of men out there, they surround the city, they dig trenches, and then they just wait. And they wait, and they wait. And those military camps were brutal. They were just not fun, not cool. They would rather go run in and attack the city, even though the city had a huge advantage with giant walls and archers. They'd rather go run up there and get arrowed to death than to starve the city out and take the months and months and time that it takes to win siege warfare, not losing a single man. But here's the irony of this. One of the biggest problems in siege warfare military camps was harlotry, because they had another camp that followed their camps to service the soldiers. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic that goes through all of this. Because what do we know? What do we know about the Exodus? What happened? What happened later on when they were out in the wilderness? Other things started to enter in, and they started to worship other gods. It's just a very strange thing to see different parts of history all dovetail together with teachings in the Bible, and then see the world we're living in today go right along with it. Absolutely no difference. So I will leave it there. God bless all of you. Thank you so much. I very, very much appreciate it. Everything you've done. If you can join us, it would make a huge, huge difference in my life, just the $1. There's a $5 level over there as well. You can pledge whatever you want, but, you know, it's making my life actually go forward instead of just spinning my wheels. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Love every single one of you. God bless. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Pray for each other. Lift each other up. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.